The Guardians just keep on winning, man. It's a beautiful thing to see. I can tell, as much as I don't know how engaged fans are with or if there's excitement, true excitement about Brown's training camp, the quarterback competition, all that. I just still don't really feel it, but maybe it's just me. I can tell that the city is getting excited about the Guardians again. And now my biggest thing is I wonder if that all goes out the window if they get to the trade deadline and just do nothing, because it does kind of feel like that could be what they do. That would be sort of par for the course for this franchise, to just do nothing. And if that sort of sucks some of the air out of this thing.
Do you think that'd be the wrong move though?
Yes.
Well, then talk me through what the right move would be.
Okay, so
put on your GM hat. Let's make some moves, Spencer.
This leads nicely into kind of what we wanted to, the bulk of what we wanted to get into in terms of what does buying potentially look like? Because listen, the Guardians are playing themselves into being buyers. The Tigers are playing the Guardians into needing to be buyers, I think, as well, because of how they're playing right now, where they're closing this gap in the division. Mitch brought up that last year, Detroit was 50-53 at this point in the seasons. They were 12 games back of the Guardians, who were in first at this time, and then they ended up finishing the season 6.5 games back of Cleveland. And so, but I remember it getting even tighter than that at one point, where Cleveland had that slump in August, and all the teams in the division kind of got a little closer, and then the Guardians kind of re-separated later. And so this is the perfect storm to buy. And to me, I had Al Pulowski on over the weekend, and he mentioned being slight buyers. And I was kind of curious, what does that look like, right? And I guess if you're going to be a slight buyer, it's probably trading some prospect or prospects that aren't your top guys, that are, sort of just spending a lot of time in AAA, but they haven't got their major league shot yet, or they haven't really been able to make it in the majors. And you do what you did last year, which is hey, we added Lane Thomas. And I think if they do something like that, I'm not saying that means punch their ticket to the World Series, but I do think fans would be happy that they at least did something. I honestly think, though, the way that the Guardians should attack this is almost doing the selling while buying thing. You have a couple assets here that you can trade or flip to improve the thing that we know needs improving, which is the lineup. And I get it. They're playing a lot better right now. They look like the 27 Yankees as of this week. But that's also as of
who
this
they're
week.
Playing to.
That's
because that matters. I think that's a big part of this conversation.
Right.
As you think about whether or not they should be buyers, sellers, or stand patters, is this season they are 21-37 against teams 500 or above.
That's a problem.
They've been really good against teams that are bad. They have, and give them credit because you don't always do this, but they have beaten teams that they're supposed to beat. And teams don't always do that, right? You deserve some semblance of credit for doing that. However, they have not proven to me that they are a real contender. But I do think that the slight buyer thing makes some sense, because the way that this organization is operated when they have been in that position is they have made buying moves that don't just impact this year. They have made buying moves that are moves that not only make them maybe a little bit better this year, but make them better next year, that make them better the year after that. And if they are going to add at the trade deadline, I do think it needs to be a move that is something that's going to make them better in 2026. Because right now, until I actually see them have postseason success with the way that this lineup is built, I do believe in the pitching. I think that their pitching is a real thing, and I will always believe in this organization's pitching with how good they've been doing that for over a decade. So I don't have issues there. But until I see this lineup go have success against good teams consistently, I'm not going to believe in them. And I don't know that we're going to get the opportunity to do that the rest of the season because of how soft their schedule is for the most part.
Yeah.
At least until the month of September.
I mean, leading up to the deadline, they finish off with the Orioles today. And then they get the Royals, who are the last. We can say that the Royals are the worst team in this division. And then
I would say the White Sox are.
That's true. I lied. Yeah, the White Sox are worse. But then you get the Rockies, who are undoubtedly the worst team in baseball right now, right before the deadline. And I think you're right, Danny. This stretch of the season is going to almost paint this fool's gold idea of who the Guardians are. And this is why I say, I am worried about them standing pat, because I think that they could just be like, hey, look what we're doing now. Because they love to do that. They love to live in the moment and be like, hey, this didn't really work out, but look at this thing over here that's going really well. Like it's why Stephen Vogt, as that 10-game losing streak was going on, sat there and said, like, I actually think we're playing some of our best baseball. They're so good.
Come on.
We all know it was BS, but like they love taking like little bits and chunks of the season and being like, look at us now. Look, like what we're doing. We don't need to change anything. Like we're good. And I just think that would be a huge mistake because to your point, yeah, look who you're playing. Are we really, can we really say this team has a chance to compete on the biggest stage in the postseason? Yes, the offense is clicking right now. We know how baseball is. It's a lot of ebbs and flows. It's a lot of peaks and valleys. They're at a peak right now offensively, but not so long ago. I mean, June was not that long ago, and they were awful in June. For 10 games, they lost 10 games in a row.
They were the worst team in baseball in the month of June.
I cannot forget about that being part of this season as well, where it's like, yeah, you have what you have right now against bad teams, but I also saw what I saw in June. And so if the truth is somewhere in the middle, like this offense still probably isn't good enough. I think you need to add something. I'm not opposed. I know other people probably are. I would not be opposed to doing something where you trade like a Class A and you get back a controllable asset, like you said, because they never make deals that are only for the now, that adds to your lineup where you're injecting some life into that thing, getting some more offensive help, and maybe getting a controllable asset or two that is going to be here for the next couple of years as well, that you can also then build around moving forward into 2026 and beyond.
So I do look at the group of three guys, and it's Emmanuel Clase, it's Cade Smith, and Steven Kwan. Three guys that could theoretically be moved. I wouldn't expect those guys to be moved, but I do think that the Guardians would need to be overwhelmed in order to trade one of those guys away. And I think if they are overwhelmed by an offer for one of those guys, maybe it does make sense, because if you are going to trade an Emmanuel Clase, and I think he's probably, of those three guys, probably has the lowest price tag via trade. I would think they would want more for Cade Smith just because of how long he's under team control. And I think they would probably want a little bit more for Steven Kwan as well.
And Clase, surprisingly, because of his contract, has a couple more years than I think
he's got two team options for $10 million.
But what's interesting with that is like we saw him struggle at the beginning of the year, and it's one of those like, can you time it right where you get out from that before the drop off comes? Because that tends to happen with closers.
Well, and I just think bullpens historically are pretty volatile, right?
Sure.
Like unless you are Mariano Rivera, just as a reliever, you're going to be pretty volatile from year to year. And Emmanuel Clase has been awesome, and he is, in my opinion, the best closer in baseball right now, and has been that for several years. So I do wonder what they could get back from him. Like if they trade him, does that automatically mean they're sellers, or could they get stuff back that helps them this year and in the future? Could they get young players that are maybe in the major leagues right now or close to the major leagues right now that are making an impact in 2025 and then making a bigger impact in 26 and 27 when this organization, after what was, I think, a terrible offseason this past winter, which set them up to have a not great season this year, but could this lead into a good offseason this winter and then into true World Series contenders next season, the year after that? Because ultimately, that's what these moves need to be about. Maybe it's not winning the World Series this year, because I just don't think that, as currently constructed, and even if you do make a trade like sending out Emmanuel Clase, I don't know that there's a deal out there that's going to make this team a true World Series contender this year. But there are moves out there that I think could push them closer to being true World Series contenders next season. And I think ultimately at some point, that needs to be more of the goal for this franchise, because the thing I am tired of with the Guardians is them wanting to be just good enough to get lucky.
Oh, they have mastered.
They are the kings of trying to be good enough to get lucky rather than trying to be great. I would very much just like them to try and win a World Series because they are the best team in baseball, not try and win the World Series because, hey, we were good for 2 weeks in October. Because I don't think that works the same way it worked 10 years ago.
Yeah, listen, they are the masters of selling hope because they're always in the conversation, but they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride that way. And listen, if the Dodgers come calling and they're like, hey, we'll offer you Andy Pages or we'll offer you Dalton Rushing, like, yeah, those are deals that help you now and in the future, to Danny's point. And I'd be willing to move off of somebody like Emmanuel Clase if that was the case. But I this is setting up where if they don't buy at this point, man, like I think fans should be woefully disappointed in how.
Do you think there's a world in which buying is a mistake though? Because I could see with this, I don't.
Only if it means you're getting like, only if you were doing it for a rental, right? Like if you were getting back, but that's the only way I see it as the wrong decision, because like just the way this team operates, they're not going to get fleeced like that anyway. But I just can't. I don't know. I'm like you, where I'm just sick of like them just doing enough to be in the conversation, but never actually get over the top. And people are still angry about the way they handled this offseason, even though I know the guys that they got are sort of contributing to the season, obviously. But I think you have to buy in some. We got some very, very, very sad news yesterday, Danny Cunningham. I'm not talking about Ozzy Osbourne passing away. That was very sad, which, by the way, like I remember when I was a kid, the Osbournes, like the show.
Yeah.
And like I thought Ozzy Osbourne was pretty old back then. And then on top of that, like all the health stuff he's had over the years, I thought for sure that man was like in his late 80s.
Yeah, I was surprised to see he was 76.
Yeah, when they said 76, I was like, that's really like that's no, it's not young, but I was like, I really thought he was older than that.
I did too.
But I guess that's also the effects of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right?
So
like,
how are you going to transition out of this in the topic you wanted to talk about?
So much less tragic than that. Chase DeLauter being placed, needing surgery on his wrist, and his season is probably over. And the dreams of him coming to Cleveland are certainly off the table, I think, this year. So here's the thing. Obviously, we didn't know that he was dealing with like a wrist issue that turned into a bigger problem back when we were all touting, like, why isn't he up?
Well, I mean, we don't know that he was dealing with it at that point. We don't know when this started.
I thought the initial report was that like he's been dealing with like a minor wrist thing, like, you know, some pain, but it wasn't like stopping him from playing.
Like just before the All-Star break.
And then it became bigger, and then they realized it was like this fracture that he needs surgery for.
Right, but I think people were clamoring for him before this was the thing.
That's probably
true. I mean,
true.
because correct me if I'm wrong, but people, including myself, really wanted him up here during the midst of that losing streak, and that was before a wrist thing popped up. Like the first I saw about a wrist thing was a little bit before was maybe like 4 or 5 days before the All-Star break.
Yeah,
and these things, of course, happen fast, and we have seen, we've seen Jason Kipnis had this injury here. Jose Ramirez had this injury here. So this is not something that I do think it some senses comes out of nowhere a little bit. And his does seem to be a little bit more complicated than that. Like it wasn't just one swing that fractured this bone and caused him to need surgery the way that I do think it was with Jose Ramirez and was with Jason Kipnis when it happened. But it's a bummer because I think they need to find out about it.
Yeah.
They need to know whether or not he's going to be a good Major League Baseball player. And of course, you're not going to know for sure if he got 2 months in the big leagues or 3 months in the big leagues this year, but you'd have more information on him. And that's part of the thing that I think the Guardians have been dragging their feet on, is he has been somebody that to me and everybody else, except for apparently the Cleveland Guardians, has looked like somebody that is ready to be in the major leagues. And yes, he has dealt with a number of injury issues, which I think is part of the reason why he wasn't at the big leagues much, much earlier than he is right now, because he's not been able to stay healthy. But my whole thing was, well, he's not going to be able to stay healthy forever. Why not have him in the big leagues while he is healthy and performing? Because he had gotten on base in every single AAA game that he played this year. He was performing. He was showing he's ready to be in the big leagues, and they continue to drag their feet as far as calling them up. And now they're going to enter next season, in all likelihood, having no idea about him as a Major League Baseball player, and that makes this a lost season for him.
Yeah, I mean, like I know Zach Mazzo mentioned this with Earl and I several weeks back, or maybe like a month back now. The Guardians basically said during spring training, like, Chase DeLauter will be here at some point this season. Like, they made that pretty clear. They might not have said it that deliberately, but they implied that their goal was to have him up at some point. And I can understand to a degree where it's like, yeah, he's had injury issues throughout his career, so we want to give him some time to, stay healthy and whatever. But to your point, Danny, and I agree, at some point you just had to rip off the Band-Aid and be like, okay, maybe we don't have enough information, or I don't even want to say enough. They have a process in how they evaluate guys, and they want them to have a certain amount of at-bats and all that. So maybe it was about like, he hasn't reached the threshold that we're comfortable with yet. Maybe it's about like screw your damn threshold, throw it out. Like, just get him up here because he was healthy for a stretch there. And you could have used that bat in your lineup, and you could have at least used it to start evaluating who he is as a player. And I said that at the time, like, get him up now before he does get hurt again.
Yep.
And so this is now turning into like maybe one of the biggest like what ifs in this organization's history. Like, what if because we don't know, like, he could get hurt again. This might just be a thing for him, and that's unfortunate. But what I think, like, for me, next year, how they approached it this year is how they approached it this year. There's nothing you can do now. He's not coming up in 2025. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
If they start next year and they're still touting this whole like, well, we need to see him do it at AAA a little bit longer. We need to see him stay healthy a little bit longer. So he better be on the major league roster when the season begins next year.
There's no chance of that.
If for nothing else, to be like, all right, we finally let's start figuring out what we have in this guy. And this is assuming he's healthy through spring training too, because that's part of the problem is he got hurt in spring training. But if he's healthy at the end of spring training, he better damn well start 2026 on the MLB roster, because this guy showed you maybe with a wrist issue that was flaring up, maybe not. It's kind of nebulous, like when it all sort of started, that he can hit AAA pitching.
Yeah.
He was on like a 10-game hit streak while these beginning conversations about this wrist injury started popping up. So I don't know, man. Like,
but that is not how they operate.
It's not, but it should be.
He is not going to
waste him in AAA again,
because that's how they operate, Spencer. Because that is exactly how they operate, and I would bet that he's not going to be in the big leagues until May next year. I would bet that the first month of the season, he's not going to be with the Guardians.
So we get to have this conversation over again. Yes,
because they care about service time manipulation. They care about him not being a Super 2 guy. They care about all those things.
What is it, service time manipulation, like 4 weeks it's only like 4 weeks that you need? I guess
What's
that's
4
May.
weeks? That's May.
Well, now the season starts in March, so it could be end of April.
It's going to be May. That's how it goes. He will not be on the roster to start the season. They don't do that. Who have they given that green light to ever? Guys that have not had long-term effects on the team. Like, other than Tyler Naquin, who started the year, his rookie year, on the big league roster, and then obviously did not last because he's currently back in A-ball trying to make it back as a pitcher at this point. But Francisco Lindor, they didn't bring him up until the middle of June.
Yeah,
and you could make the argument that in 2015, if they bring him up 2 weeks earlier, that's a playoff team.
Did Naylor come up like the year prior for a little bit, and then they brought him all the way up the next year? I can't remember.
Bo Naylor was in AAA too long.
I'm talking about Josh Naylor when Naylor first came up.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's the one I forget. For some reason there's like a very. It's like a nameless gray face in my head, but I remember somebody who just like started the season. I think I could be completely wrong.
Well, it's everybody. It might as well be a nameless, faceless person because it's been everybody.
Yeah.
They are very, very conservative with these guys, with their timeline of bringing them to the major leagues. And I do think it's to a point where they don't really have proof of concept with a lot of them, because
that's the important part.
That's the thing that bothers me is they've been doing it this way. And it hasn't proven to work, because what hitters have they developed that they've held them back? Who's it worked out for? Jose Ramirez, they brought up probably too early, and then he had to go back down. And nobody expected Jose Ramirez when he was a minor league baseball player to be what he is.
As what he is.
Right. He was not expected to develop into what he has developed. So I don't even think that is worth bringing up here.
You could say they developed Francisco Lindor, but I think Francisco Lindor.
But even he was too late to come up.
True, but I think Francisco Lindor was like one of these otherworldly talents.
Right, guy.
He was going to be good no matter where he came up. But they could put their they could put a feather in their cap for that one. I mean, to a degree, like they kind of developed Josh Naylor into like a power hitting guy, just who strikes out a lot and sometimes is kind of lazy, but like. It is what it is.
I mean, I wouldn't call that a super success story.
No, for sure. And that's the thing. Like, you're right. That's the thing.
And even then, he spent most of his minor league career with a different organization.
Right.
2 other organizations.
That's the thing that gets me, though, is what you're saying right now. Like, what evidence do we have of this? Or we know we can spend segments talking about the number of pitchers, I won't
question anything they do to develop pitchers. I won't question that. They have proven they know how to do that.
If we played like there's the game where you just like name random, sports figures, we could do that with just like name Guardians pitchers that started in their farm system and turned out to be good. Like there's a long, long list of those guys that have panned out. We don't question, and we can do that with those guys. We're struggling to name batters that they've actually developed, and that's the biggest problem for me.
That's the issue.
Is like you have this process. I get it. Everybody does. They think they have the best way to evaluate talent, and it's across sports over other teams, whatever. Analytics are a big part of this game in all sports now as well. Like that comes into play. But what proof do we have that it's worked? They've been touting these middle infielders, Brian Rocchio, Tyler Freeman, Gabe Arias.
They had at one point like 8 middle infielders on their 40-man roster, and none of them are actually good.
And none of them have really panned out. The best we can say is that Rocchio showed up in the playoffs last year. That's all we got.
And he did, and credit to them. But like their best middle infielder is Daniel Schneemann.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no offense to Daniel Schneemann, but that's not exactly a World Series winning formula.
And Bazana, I think, has a chance to be good, but like given this organization's history of developing hitters, like, are we sure about that?
Well, I do wonder where he would be right now had he not had the injury, the oblique injury that cost him 6 or 8 weeks this year. Like, I think that, and listen, that's not.
Are we holding out any hope that he gets up here before the season's over?
This year?
Or that he's like a September like roster expansion edition?
Are we talking about the Guardians? Like, are we talking about this organization being aggressive with that?
The one with their stadium that's over there?
There's no chance of that. Like, and maybe had he not gotten hurt, that would have happened. But I look at it as, okay, he's probably going to be in the minor leagues until next July because that's how things work here. They're not aggressive with prospects they're not aggressive with hitting prospects. And they've not been good at it. Like, I hope Bazana pans out. I don't know that he's a can't miss guy, but I hope that he pans out.
I don't think he was labeled as that coming out either. So all this conversation though is just more reason why they cannot miss the opportunity to buy in some capacity at the deadline, in my opinion, because the one thing you could have held out hope for was like, all right, you need an injection in this lineup. If you don't want to do anything, okay.
Well, they
call up Chase DeLauter.
Well, they still need it with CJ Kafis.
Yeah,
like they need to call him up too.
Like you had that in your back pocket. Now it's like, okay, you don't have that necessarily if you're hoping to change something with this lineup. What are you going to do to maximize this? I just can't wrap my head around if they stand pat at this point. We were getting some tweets on the Guardians a little bit early in the show. We were talking about him. Jim Carrero says, or I don't even know. I'm just going to leave it.
What's his name?
Correo. Corrao. Correo. I think I got it.
Are you sure?
Anyway, I'm not going to say it again. This beating who they are supposed to beat stuff with the Guardians. They lost 10 straight. Why can't people just be happy that they responded with 11-13? It's baseball. Anyone can beat anyone. Lose, people bitch. Win. Well, who the hell did they beat?
Well, I don't think anyone's upset that they're winning. I'm
That's what
very
I said.
happy
That they're winning.
Like, you should be happy that they're winning, but I just also don't think that I don't want people to be tricked into thinking they're all of a sudden this juggernaut or World Series contender.
Right.
Like, it is awesome the run they've been on, but they had to win 11 of 13 to become 51-50.
Yeah. Like they're a game over 500.
Yes.
And that's the problem for me. It's like, how did we get to this record? There's the Guardian story can't just be, well, hey, they're winning now in July and maybe into early August. And they're playing inferior opponents. It has to be like big picture. We saw this team go an entire month without being able to hit their way out of a paper bag. Like what like there's something missing there. And I just think it would be a disservice to not maximize. Yeah, you're hot. Great. But now that you're back in the conversation, like take advantage of that, maximize it, add to the roster. If they do nothing, it tells me they think they're fine. Everything's fine. And it's not.
Well, or it could tell you that they don't actually believe in this. Like that could be it too, that they think this is fool's gold.
And they're just kind of riding it out because they're just going to let it be what it is.
Winning 11 of 13 can erase in the standings a 10-game losing streak, but it can't erase the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
It can't erase it from,
it's burned into my memory forever.
It cannot erase it from your memory. And I think that is almost just as important.